Good. Rehan, today is?
Today.
It? Two. Good. Number?
Rehan was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in 2015 at the age of 3. He is now 6. His parents are Riza and Ranita. Rehan currently attends a special needs school for autistic children in Centurion, Gauteng, called Little Leap School for Autism. Thokozani was diagnosed in 2008 when he was 6 years old. He is now 16.
You can turn it around and put it in the box for us.
In the box.
Yes.
William and Fikile are his parents. Thokozani currently attends a special needs school called Unica School for Autism in Menlo Park, Pretoria. Atang was diagnosed in 2017 at the age of 2. Atang is now 3 years old. Her parents are Mervyn and Khomolemo. Like Rehan, Atang also attends Little Leap School for Autism in Centurion, Gauteng. These 3 families will give their account on how they've lived with autism.
The first red flag that we had that Rehan was different was when he didn't start speaking at the age that you would expect him to speak.
The little speech that he was developing had suddenly stopped at the age of 18 months, and his social behavior was a bit different, and he was having continuous meltdowns. So that was a bit of a sign for us that something was wrong. Rehan displayed your basic symptoms of being on the spectrum, except one.
The first one was a lack of spoken language. There was also an inability to follow instructions. And there was also gaps in his socialization, being able to socialize with other kids.
And then with him, it was the meltdowns. Usually there's other factors that come in that last symptom, but with Ray, it was the meltdowns. So those were the symptoms that put him onto the spectrum.
The main difference that we noticed is that she liked playing alone and being in her own world and space, which is not normal for a developing child to be that way because they normally want to interact. That's when we noticed that something is totally different with her. Okay, with autism, even when the doctors diagnose it, they say it's a 3-legged thing. It's speech and language delay, repetitive behavior, and lack of social interaction, which she had all 3 in her case. She had all 3 symptoms, which led to us being concerned, and then when the doctor asked us now which kind of symptoms does she has, and then he definitely confirmed that it's those 3 that causes a child to be diagnosed with autism.
Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. What that means is that there's a genetic element, so it's inherited in families, mostly, and that you're born with it. It's something you're born with it, and it has an effect throughout your entire life. They talk about the dyad. It used to be the triad, which is that there are deficits in communication and socialization, and there are deficits in the child has obsessions and sensory difficulties. Those are the 2 areas.
I realized that Thokozani was not a normal child when he was supposed to actually communicate, like say mama, papa, and so on. He wasn't actually saying those things. But as I said, that he wasn't also communicating. He was mute. So those are the things that actually made us realize that there is something wrong with him. But at that particular time, we didn't even know what autism is about.
As I say, some cannot have speech at all. Some never develop speech. Others do develop speech, but it can be odd and different. They're often very literal, so that they don't go beyond the meaning of something. They struggle to interpret metaphor and metaphorical language. They can be very blunt to the point of appearing rude, because they're very often very honest about what they see and what they're experiencing. They can get obsessed with doing certain things, and that's all they want to do over and over and over. And it can sometimes be odd things. And then there are all the sensory difficulties, noises being too much, smells being too much, getting light being too bright, being fussy about the clothes they wear, or that certain textures irritate them, being often very fussy eaters. And then sometimes also having problems with getting car sick, or the opposite, really liking being swung and being in cars and this sort of thing. So it can be hyper or hypo in the sensory areas. Depends on different people.
Our lifestyle has changed since Rehan was diagnosed. There was the financial aspect, which means that more money goes towards these treatments. And then there's fewer social events that you can go to. But there has been, due to the improvement over the last few years, though, we are able to do a lot more than what most families do.
Personally, I gave up a career that I was studying towards too, but with no regrets, because by giving that up, I've seen the positive in Rehan's development. By being there with him for his intervention with therapies and doctor's appointments, and just working at home with him as well made a big difference. So yes, something was given up, but we got positive out of it.
What is this? Say da, a, k. What is this? Goat. Good. Cow. Good. What is this?
Cat. Dada. Man.
S. This. And this? Meow, meow. Who makes meow, meow? The cat. Good. Whose hat is missing?
Dada.
Dad's. Where did they look?
House.
House. Good.
Barn.
Barn. Barn. This is the kitchen. Yes, the kitchen.
Due to Rehan's meltdowns and temper tantrums, we stopped going to a lot of social events. Rehan's behavior was unpredictable.
We stopped attending family and friends functions and parties and going out to a mall for lunch or supper, for example. That changed, so we couldn't do that anymore. But over the past year or so, it's sort of getting back to the way it's supposed to, the social things that we do together as a family. It's not fully there as a fully functional family would, but we're getting there.
Sit down, sit down.
We had to spend a lot of money going to the doctors, therapists, just so that we get her to regain her speech again, because the speech was building up at first, but it vanished.
Him being autistic, my wife had to actually leave her job. So we only had one income in the family. Her being out of work, I had to actually make sure that whatever I put away for our pension and our savings had to actually cover myself and herself as well. Everything else, like the social life and everything else, had to actually stop And I remember at some stage, there's a year where she had to actually then every morning take Thokozani to school and stay there at school and wait for the school to actually come out to be able to transport Thokozani back home. So there's a lot of things that actually affected her. Personally, I think she was affected more than anybody else in the house. Like any other person, you have dreams to actually either have a big house or a big car, or going out on holidays overseas and so on. All those dreams were actually shattered because we had one income now, and we had to actually cover the expenses that Thokozani actually came up with. So it really hit us in the pocket, him being autistic.
Our lifestyle had to change because we were planning our lives on a two-income family. Then when Rehan was diagnosed, then Renita and I made the decision that one of us needs to stay at home to be able to take him to school and to therapy and so forth. So we had to adapt our lives to becoming a one-income family. And we also had to now pay for things like therapies, which we never anticipated before.
After Rehan's diagnosis and during the whole few months afterwards, Riza was the emotional one because of his own experience with having a special needs child in his family. So he needed not so much support, but he needed a positive push in the right direction to show him that there will be improvement, and there was improvement going for therapies and the intervention that we was doing. But eventually he got out of it. I think it was just that initial bit after diagnosis that he needed that support. When we weren't 100% sure what it was or what we could do to help the situation, it did take away a lot of attention from Zara.
However, we try and make it a point to set aside time for our eldest child so that she doesn't miss out on anything.
Ever since she's learned to accept his condition and understand it a bit more, she's become more involved in helping him out and, with his therapies and work and focus. So it's actually gotten better.
Yeah. No? E. That's it. Good. Hey, that's not an E. What is that? Not I. You said E. Ent. Eh.
This.
Yeah. See, Zara will show you. What's that?
Hand.
Hand. So what letter goes there? Her and. Not hand. Hand. Her and. Yeah. A. He's playing the fools.
Play for them.
Yeah. Playing the fools. He said playing fools.
Play for them.
No, don't play fools.
Play for them.
No, don't play fools.
Play for them. What is this?
What is that? What does it look like?
Play for them.
What do you think?
Play for them.
No, man. Okay, Zara, what is this?
Hat.
Ray, how do you spell hat? Huh? At. What will come there? What letter? No, not hut. See, he's playing the fools. No, don't play fools. At. Yay.
Siblings, when they see that the other kid is getting more attention, they will start become jealous. But it's something that we will have to deal with because the little brother, when he grows up, we will have to make sure that she understands that her sister is different. We will have to maybe even give her a crash course on autism so that she's able to play or interact with her, yeah. Obviously, she will need more attention than the other one. She is different from every other kid, so she will obviously need assistance. The attention that we'll be giving her is meant to enhance her skills or development or any kind of assistance that she will be in need of.
I think the older we got, me and my sister, we realized that this is my brother's condition and he's going to need much more hands-on attention than we do. And we kind of, accepted it, and we knew that it was for his own good.
My role as a bigger sibling did change a bit. I feel as if in everything that I think of, in everything I do, including my studies and jobs, I have to make sure that I secure those things more than the next person, the next older sibling. The next older sibling will have to think of things like, do they go to school? Do they finish their studies? I had to make sure that I do it and I finish my studies and I get a job, so that if ever anything happens, again, like I'd mentioned, if anything happens to my parents, I'm the next one to step in. So those are the kind of things that I've had to think about concerning Thokozani and his condition.
People with disabilities go to a special school in most cases, and then from then on, it's a matter of what next. So we are the what next. So from between 18 and 21, then the parent needs to know, okay, if they're not going to varsity, what to do next. They need to get stimulated on some level. You can't just sit in front of the TV the whole day. So then we are that next level of, okay, putting them somewhere else, also to gain that bit of independence. If you're not at home, you need to be with your peers, because other people go to varsity or work where they'll be with their peers. So that's basically what we provide.
These homes and houses that they have with the autistic people, I see that more for the people on the severe end of the spectrum, not so much for Rehan. There's a lot that he can now as a 6-year-old do on his own. So as parents, we're hopeful that there's a lot more he'll be able to do as an adult at 18 years old. So I don't see that for him, and I want to integrate him amongst neurotypical people and kids. And if he's going to be in that environment in a home just for autistic people, I mean, is he really going to be exposed to the world? He's not going to really get out of his shell and try and adapt, with living with autism, but adapting out there in the real world. So I think he's going to be a bit more sheltered if we keep him in a place like that.
What's that? A tongue? You want some more? Show me your hands like this. And that one?
Okay, if she couldn't live alone, I think there will never be another alternative. If me and Merv are still around, then she'll most definitely live with us. And it will be a different case if we're not around, yeah.
If there's other options, like where they care for autistic children, man, I think then I'll have to rigorously check that place. But I don't think I'll prefer her staying there permanently. I would rather have her stay with me.
He's very much attached to us. We've tried the first few years, or the first year basically, for him to stay at the hostel there. That didn't work at all. At some stage, I thought my son will die. He was sick. He couldn't actually eat and everything. So I think the best thing is for him to stay with us. If we are not around, it will be best if he can stay with his either brother or his sister.
It can happen at any age where the parents pass on. So then that's why we always have legal guardians in place. But now, even with parents who still are in the picture, then they try to make sure that the siblings still take care of the person that's in the home. So then they'll maybe take them out for a restaurant, like meal, or just to see them, just so it's an easier transition. Not just that one day the parents are not there, because that would be a bit traumatic for our beneficiaries. Just that one day when it happens, they have that transitioning into it. They know that, okay, one day it's my mom or it's my dad, but other day it might be auntie or it might be a cousin or somebody else, a mom's friend. Yeah, so.
You're clapping
I think that if Rehan is unable to look after himself when he's older, we will assume that responsibility for as long as we are around. Unfortunately, because we are obviously a lot older, so there is that risk that there is that worry that what happens when we pass away.
We've never wanted to impose any of Rehan's difficulties onto Zara because she's an individual. She needs to go out there and live her own life. So in the event that he can't stay with us, we would prefer that he's on his own, but with assisted living. So in the sense of getting somebody that's trained to deal with autistic people to live with him. But ultimately, we'd love him to live on his own and live his own life, yeah.
If it were to happen that she will have to stay with her brother, I think that's the closest to family that she can have. So it will be ideal for her to stay with her brother, because I don't know much about autism centers and autism homes, how it's run, how they live, how they interact with other people. So maybe if I knew something about that, I would maybe be okay with it or something, yeah.
If everything goes according to me, she will always live with me. She's my baby, man. You don't even have to sit around the table about it. She can always stay with me until I die, until death do us part. It's a natural contract that you sign with her.
His older sister and his brother as well, I would actually appreciate, I've talked to them about that, I would appreciate them if they can actually stay with him, because he's used to them as well and they are used to him. They know, his life and everything. He's used to them as well. So I would appreciate if they can actually take care of him when we are not around. Hopefully, with everything that we are trying to put together now, they will not have a burden from a financial point of view to take care of him.
I don't worry that much about my future based on the fact that Thokozani is autistic and I'm the firstborn, because my parents have made a lot of plans looking at the future, and I know my role as his big sister, and I've had time to process and think about everything, and everything that I do and my plans do include him, so it has become sort of second nature. So it's not much of a worry.
You are so smart. Well done, give me 5.
There's actually been a lot of improvement with Rehan over the last 3 years. He was diagnosed around the age of 3. He's 6 now. And there's been an amazing amount of improvement. In fact, we are actually surprised. He's completely unrecognizable from the child that he was 3 years ago.
What do we have here? Good job. What's that?
Do.
Soup. Very good, Ryan. Okay, what do we have here? Good. And this is? Cloudy. What do we have there? What's that? Say for me. A jacket. Good job. What's that? You put it on your head. It's a hat. What's that when it's good?
Obviously, there's a long way to go, but he's able to do things that we never thought that he'll be able to do. And the thing is, we don't ever expect him to be like a neurotypical child. I mean, he is his own child, but we see him becoming the best that he can be. And that's been very positive for us.
Look what we have here. Windy. Jacket. Cloudy.
Cloudy.
Okay. Windy. Look around.
We.
The
What?
jacket.
Cloudy.
Cloudy. All right. Now I'm going to mix this here. Okay, what was our first one? What was the first one? Yes, windy. And then? Good boy. Jacket, say for me. And? Oh, you're a real star. Give me 5.
Yummy. And put it in between. Oh, you want it there? There's been a tremendous positive change because now she's more focused when she does something, and then she's not very secluded when it comes to her peers. She can now behave, and then she can now communicate what her needs much more better than she used to. And I think it has to do with growing up and advancing in with age, because when they are the youngest is when you struggle the most. But now as they grow up, I think it becomes a bit better.
Wow, Atang. Good job. Good job, my baby. What a nice tower. You can build more. You can build more. Yes, more. More. Yeah, more. You can build more. More. More.
The treatment for autism is a kind of a nebulous area. The biggest advances we've had are educationally. And that's come about because high-functioning autistic people themselves have talked about what their experience is like and how they learn. And so there's been a revolution in education being more visually oriented, taking into account the rigidity, which I didn't mention earlier, of autistic people, that they like routine and they don't like change, taking into account their deficits to compensate for it, and also in understanding. You know, the more you can understand the world that autistic people live in, the easier it is to make the world a little bit easier for them. So there has to be accommodation to that.
She started with speech therapist at the University of Pretoria. The development was very slow, and I'm not sure, but I'm just assuming that because the therapy was not done by the qualified people, it was students who were doing practicals because they need practicals to get a qualification. Most of the development, speech development, we started seeing it after she started attending the School of Autism. Within 3 weeks, she was starting to be audible. She would no longer drag you to the fridge. Maybe if she wanted a yogurt or water, she would maybe give you a glass and say it, I want water, but you know, in our Venek, which is Setswana. I was so excited. I used to write every word in my phone. I used to note everything in a list, and state the date there.
After some few months of the music therapy, I realized his change in behavior and the way he actually is calm and everything. I think the teachers, the music therapist herself, actually also realized that, I think, from the beginning. And she communicated with us, and then she also told us that it is something that needs to actually happen over a period of time for it to actually take effect. But already from her side, she already saw the signs. And after some few months, we also saw the very same signs, and then basically continued with the music therapy from there. He was mute. Now he can actually communicate. In fact, sometimes we think that he's actually talking a lot. Thokozani now, he is able to do a lot of things in the household as well, helping out with chores in the house and everything. So all those therapies, they actually helped a lot in his life. They're still continuing with those therapies, and they actually help him a lot.
What does plumber start with?
P.
See if you can find P for me.
There's P.
There's P. Wonderful. Can you find plumber?
Plumber.
Almost on a daily, I think of how he will be as an adult and how he will cope and how he will interact with other people in our community.
There's plumbers.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, and then they tell you on which page you can find them. Plumbers and sanitary engineers. What page?
100, 232.
Okay, let's go to that page. Can you go?
There was many times where he'd find the key to the gate, and we did not know how. He would find the key to the gate, and then many times the police would bring him back. The first time they did not know who he was, but then we had to explain to them at the police station that he's autistic and this is what he does. He will find the key wherever it is, and then he will take a walk. And so from then onwards, the police would find him and then bring him back home.
The biggest worry that we have is that Rehan might not be able to take care of himself when he's older, and that he will require someone to be there with him, and he won't be able to live in the world on his own.
I think any parent with an autistic child would worry about their future, mainly if they can survive out there in society, if they can get a job, if they're going to get married, can they have a career. But I haven't thought that far ahead. So basically now it's just to teach him life skills for him to be able to function in society. And then I think the others will come along slowly as he grows up, and we can see what can he function in, what can he work, can he study. So I think as time goes on and as he develops, then we will, get to those questions.
My only worry is her being able to interact with society, like everywhere, at every levels, where she will not be discriminated because of her condition. Because I remember when I was growing up from primary, we didn't know anything about autism then. And now I feel like, then not having knowledge, it can be so wrong. It can be very dangerous. It's not okay. I'm hoping for the best, because like her autism is not what the doctors said. It's not that severe. We can also see that because she is able to do some of the stuff by herself. She can solve little problems that maybe when she's playing with something, it's giving her a problem, she can solve it. The main problem is the speech. So I'm hoping that she'll get the speech right and maybe go into the mainstream line schools and then function in a society like everyone else is.
There's a number of things that actually worries me. The first one is basically the fact that there isn't any post-school that we could actually attend after Unica. There isn't anything that I know of where he could actually be trained to be able to work somewhere, even rudimentary work and so on. So that's the first worry that I have, that he won't be able to make a living on his own. The second one is if we basically are to, pass away. I don't know how, well, because right now the only hope that we actually have is his brother and his sister to take care of him. I don't know whether they will be able to do that, but I can see now it seems as if, that part is growing very well. So they understand him. But my biggest worry is also that, and also to say how are they going to be able to function from a financial point of view, because if he can't actually work, it means that they have to take care of him, whether from a medical point of view, clothe him, put food on the table, a roof over his head and everything. So those are the worries that I have for Thokozani.
Financially, yeah, we have set aside for both our kids, but for Rehan, it would be a bit more different in the sense that if he cannot work or earn money for himself, that he would get a monthly income to sustain him for his basic needs. And also if he may need help, if we're not around anymore and he needs full-time help, like a helper in the house just to do stuff for him, to be taken off financially there as well. He could go in either direction. He could easily enter into university or college, so he'll be covered for that, and for future as well, if he needs that extra assistance financially.
When we realize that maybe he might not necessarily be able to sustain himself financially, we've set up a trust where through that trust we purchase or we basically invest in properties. And then the income that comes in there goes through to the trust. And we're trying to bring in our other children, my son and my elder daughter, to also be part of the trust. That whenever we pass away, whoever takes care of him should not necessarily have a burden from a financial point of view, but be able to, through the income that they get from those properties, be able to either give him, a roof over his head, put clothes on his back, and feed him, and take care of his medical needs going forward and so on.
I actually wondered how it would have been if I could have taught him some of the things I know, Yeah, it would have been nice to actually leave a piece of yourself with your little brother, or just teach your little brother how certain things work. But you learn to adapt and you learn to find a new role of a big brother.
What I would hope for is for her to actually, some of the symptoms that she has will actually maybe go away or maybe get better. And most importantly, for her to be a bit independent. By that I mean, like, if she could go to school alone, come back like normally kids would walk to school, and then come back home, go out, play with friends, and then come back. That's the kind of independence that I wish upon her when she's maybe in her teenage years and stuff.
I think that what we've done is to take it as it comes, to basically try and give him the best interventions, try and work with him as much as possible, and hope for the best. If we try and hope that one day he becomes like a neurotypical child or adult, I think that is you're just setting yourself up for failure, and it's just going to frustrate yourself and the child. I think the key, like the way we're taking it, is just to give him as much support as possible and try and help him to develop to the best of his own potential. And if that means one day he is able to integrate into society, then that'll be great. But if not, then we just want him to be the best that he can be.
I'm hoping she overcomes everything in such a way that she's independent financially and in all aspects, man. In all aspects, she gets married, she have kids, almost like me. The way I became independent Just like that, man.
I would hope for Rehan to be able to live his own life, to have his own family, to have a career. I know that's a lot to ask for an autistic child, but if he learns to accept that he's autistic and that it's part of him and that it will be with him for the rest of his life, and he just has to learn how to live with it. That's all I can hope for, that he learns how to live as an autistic adult. But in the same sense, pushing himself into career, into having a family, and just to live on his own, to function on his own.
Well, I hope that at some stage the government, especially the Department of Education, they can actually put more resources in the training of autistic children as a whole. Vocationally, they can actually then, take care of themselves and teach them skills. They don't need like very sophisticated skills. They can actually get, like skills of packaging, let's say foodstuffs or whatever, and then they can get that type of training. They can wake up every morning like anybody else and go to work and some kind of a living. I can actually see that when he goes to school, he's very excited and so on. So if something like that could actually continue, even if it is from a vocational point of view, where they can actually earn money for themselves, doesn't have to be a lot of money, but just to keep them busy. That will be great if government could actually move towards that.
The biggest problem with waiting for a diagnosis, and it's a huge problem in this country, and people sometimes wait years to get it, is delaying the diagnosis very often leads to escalation of problems because people don't understand what is going on with their child, why their child is so different or so difficult. And the other problem is that schools very often won't accept a child unless there's a diagnosis. And autistic children need mostly, particularly the lower functioning ones, to be into schools that are specifically modified for autistic children, and that the teachers and the therapists in it are all working within a system that aids autistic children learning. Even higher functioning children do better in smaller schools, which is why we often recommend remedial school for them, simply because there's smaller classes and more individual treatment. But their educational system also needs to be tailored towards it. So delaying the diagnosis delays all this. Kids are placed into mainstream school where they're drowning and unhappy, and that can further lead to problems with children.